Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Eferia, and today's guest is Christopher Choate, better known by his call sign Coyote. He is a retired Air Force officer who flew the F-4 Phantom and F-15E Strike Eagle. He also worked as a strategic planner at the Pentagon, where his job was to predict the future and prevent disasters. Now he is an author of the sci-fi trilogy Apollo Wept. In his book, he explores a future where society has crashed and burned. He is here to talk about the red warning lights he sees in our culture today, the discipline of a fighter pilot, and why he runs marathons to keep his sanity. So, Chris, I am truly excited and honored to welcome you to the show. Thank you very much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you, Ezekiel. It's an honor to be here.
It's great to have you here. So, let's quickly start with an overview of your book, Apollo Wept. So, can you kindly tell us what the book is about? Give us a general overview of its context, and then tell us about your motivation behind writing the book and who the ideal readers are.
Okay, yeah. The book, I take Apollo Wept. I watched Star Trek growing up, and if you're a Trekkie, there's an episode with Apollo, and that's pretty much where that came from. It's kind of one of the episodes in there. But the book itself started with COVID, and in America here, we were, it was pretty turmoil, a lot of turmoil with things going on, a lot of issues, and the one thing that hit me was we took down a statue of President Lincoln. I say we, pretty much a mob did. And he is our greatest president by and large. Some might put him number two, but either way, one or two, one of our greatest presidents. When we take a statue down to him, that was a bad sign. And using, as you described, the strategic planning stuff I had with the Air Force, the expertise we did in that line of work, I projected if that was a go on to the future, and we are ashamed of President Lincoln, and where would we be? Like in my case, about 2100. And I created the world of Apollo Wept. If you called it a scenario, I would call it unhinged, where we just basically have kind of lost touch with reality and things are not going well. And that's kind of the world I built. And it's an America that I come with. First of all, we're broke. We're doing that today. We're spending money we don't have. We're going greatly into debt, and nobody in Washington, D.C. is addressing that. The second one was we're ashamed of our past, which is came from tearing down a statue of Abraham Lincoln. Like every nation, America's done a lot of good, it's done a lot of bad. Well, in a world where we forget about the good and just focus on the bad, that's what I have in Apollo Wept here. So it's America ashamed of its past. And a third was America obsessed with identity politics. In the 60s, we had Martin Luther King and his brilliant speech of, where he wanted the day to arrive where his kids would be judged by their content of the character. Not the color of their skin. And I think America was moving that way. And then we just, for some reason, gave up on that. And we started going into tribes. And I don't see nothing good coming from that. And in the book, I take that to excess. It's satire. So I do take it where we're obsessed with identity politics. And that's where the book leads. And it kind of talks about how that, if we got to there, and then where that could possibly take us. Very dystopian, very absurd, if you will, to future. Now, where I came from writing, I wrote Christmas letters to my family and friends, and they all encouraged me to write. And I promised some of them that are no longer with us that I would one day write a book. And say when we hit 2020, we had a lot of time with COVID, and I saw this issue going on with our country, and particularly, I say, tearing down statues we shouldn't be tearing down. That's where I came up with the idea of Apollo Wept, and that's why I wrote the book.
All right, Chris. Thank you very much for giving us that detailed overview. So, Chris, you spent years at the Pentagon as a strategic planner. Your job was to look at trends and prevent bad outcomes. So, your book, Apollo Wept, depicts a future gone wrong. So I'd like to know, did you write this story as a warning because you saw real cracks in our system that scared you?
Yeah, I did. That's a very good way to frame it there. Again, I go back, and it's in the book. I have Martin Luther King. I have his quotes and one of his letters from the Birmingham jail. That's one of my lead-ins to the third part. And I really, we were headed in the right direction. And then again, just I don't know why, but we seemed to fall off the rails. And then we just really got into identity politics. Now, we pulled that back some, and that's always good. The swings on the pendulum are, usually go far left, far right, and you kind of end up in the middle where you should be. And that's what I wrote the book for is if the scenario planning, if you take this issue and you project it on the slope and you keep moving in that direction, where could you be? Now, again, it's satire, it's way over the top, but that was trying to use satire to say a future that we don't want to go to. And that's kind of what I wrote the book for.
All right, all right. So, Chris, in a fighter jet, failure often means catastrophe, which might be fatal. But on the other hand, in writing, failure is just another bad draft. So I'd like to know, was it hard for you to switch from a zero error environment to the messy, creative process of writing a novel?
Not too bad. It was writing was it was I had written throughout my Air Force career technical reports and a few other things, but this was the first shot at fiction, if you will. And I don't know if you tried writing or not. I know you're an engineer student and everything, but I tell you, our technical background really works well because it gives you a formation that you can go to. And the fiction, I will say, I call it's science fiction, but it's very light science fiction. I don't explain. I have a nano nuclear engines. Well, I don't explain that. I just kind of label it and move on. But computers, a lot of AI and computer in the books that I can use my knowledge just to say just enough and not get too deep. Because if I get too deep, I'll be over my head. But that helps. And then I say the creative part just I didn't get that I got some of that maybe in my career, but I think most of that came from just reading. I've read all my life. I've been encouraged to read. I've had some wonderful teachers who, for various things and like plays and stuff growing up. Wizard of Oz, one of my favorite. But so I think that's where some of the creative side come from. Not more from that, but just from just reading everything I could as a young kid and keep reading science fiction, classics, you name it.
All right, all right. So in your book, you use satire and sci-fi to talk about politics. So I'd like to know, do you think it's easier, to tell the truth about our failures when you dress them up as fiction?
Yeah. It's a good way to address it. I tried to leave current politics out of it because it gets very emotional and anymore. And I think social media is really driving, compromise and in the middle, it just seems to be driving away from us. I don't when social media was new, I thought it was going to be wonderful. We'd have this great get together. We could have exchange of ideas. Well, it hasn't done that. It's just seemed to polarize, which is unfortunate. But I did think it's a way to talk to politics without trying to get it emotional. So again, I kind of left out current politics much as I could, and left with trends, if you will, because I had a story, I wanted to tell it, and try not just to irritate. Or I'm sure some people will read the book, and if they don't get to the end, they're going to not be happy with me. But if they make it to the end, I think they'll see what I'm trying to say. And but I think to answer your question is yes, I believe this is a way to talk about politics and try to take some of the emotion out.
All right, all right. So, Chris, you're an avid long distance runner. So I'd like to know why do you still do that at, this point in your life? Do you find
In my old age,
clarity? Yeah,
you
exactly.
can say it.
I
I'm
was
old.
trying
You
to
can say
I
it.
was trying to avoid that word, but you said it for
No,
me.
the gray hair here. No, no. Um,
Yeah.
I had to run in the military career. We did not run much, but we had to keep a basic level. I did not like running at all. I did not as a younger age. I did it because I had to, keep in shape. But and this is, I have to keep this quick. I'll bore your audience. But I got challenged to run a half marathon in Las Vegas, and that was basically I'm trying to represent the Air Force with other services, which I won't, the Army, the Marines, and the Navy. So for the honor of the Air Force, I ran this half marathon with no intention of ever running another one. I was just going to suffer through it, and that was it. But I got hooked on it. And there's something about long distance running that's just, it's very therapeutic. And, I guess the runner's high. I mean, I'm not fast. I'm not fast at all. Full marathons, my ancestors were never built, I don't have the genes for full marathons. I've run 10 of them, but they weren't pretty. Half marathons, I could seem to handle, but it's just, I enjoy it. It's therapeutic. I tell you, for writing, I get a lot of great ideas running. The problem is I got to remember them, but I get a lot of ideas and thoughts while running because it's just very calming, soothing. I like to say some things are hard to describe when you don't understand them yourself, and running's kind of like that. But I think that's mainly why I'm still trying to run and plan to run long as God lets me and my knees hold up.
All right. So, do you find clarity in the physical suffering of a marathon?
Clarity in the suffering that's a good question. I'll try to quote Winston Churchill here, and I think he said this. That's a scary thing about quotes anymore. You don't know if they said them or not because you have to try to read for them. But he's credited with saying America will do the right thing after it has exhausted all the wrong options or something to that effect. We'll do everything wrong, but eventually we'll come to the right answer. Boy, I'm sorry, I'm copping out on you here. That's not an answer. I think we're divided. We shouldn't be as divided as we are. That's because, again, I think certain facts, social media, there's other things, and it's not good. It's not good for the country. I don't think we need to be as divided as we are. I'd like to see more in the middle. I like to think I'm more in the middle, but again, politics doesn't seem to play well like that.
Uh, so, Chris, with someone that has, cockpit experience, if society is a plane in a nosedive, do you believe we still have the time to pull up?
Yes, I do. I do. I am an optimist. I think we will pull things out. We might have to, things might have to get worse and things might get really bad, but I think society will pull out. Overall, I am an optimist. My book is written as an optimist. I say at the very end of it, I have a very optimistic and a very positive message at the end. But yeah, I think you have to hit rock bottom sometimes in your life. Sometimes you don't recover till you hit the very rock bottom, and then you're able to, you address the issue that you've been avoiding and not working on or not paying attention to. Some point, most people will, say, all right, I've got to address this, and I think society is the same way.
All right. All right. So, Chris, for the listener right now in our audience who feels overwhelmed by the state of the world, and tell us what's one discipline habit from your military days, or maybe your life lessons that helps you stay focused on what you can control.
Yeah, I like to tell, and I told people this in the military a lot. Whatever the issue is, whatever the task is, just showing up is half of it. Just show up and get started. You may not know what you're doing and may not have everything figured out, but just showing up is half of it. And that's the first thing. And if you have any questions at all, find somebody that you trust, a mentor, and ask them. They'll give you some great advice. I worked for a general once who was very adamant there was nothing new under the sun. And he says, you talk to somebody, you read somebody is facing what you are. Find that mentor and say, show up, find a mentor, and don't quit. Just keep going at it. And like your FailCraft, what a great name for a thing. We all fail. You learn in your fail. You don't learn when you win. You learn when you fail. And you don't fail unless you quit. As long as you keep moving forward, you're not going to fail.
All right, all right, Chris. I really like your call sign, Coyote. It reminds me of this movie, Top Gun Maverick. Have you seen the movie?
Yes, the second one had my call sign. I was going to sue him for call sign infringement, but I couldn't find.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd go far with it.
yeah, really, really great movie. So, Chris, after flying jets, planning wars, and writing books, I'd like to know at this point in your life, what does being successful truly mean to you?
Great question. A great question. Someone who has gray hair, unlike you, things really change as you get older. And I've hopefully still got hopefully got another couple decades on this planet, hopefully. But family really becomes important. A lot of successful people, if you just put 100% into your effort at work and you neglect your family, and you're going to get point in your life, you're going to regret that. I really do. I don't, because, if a bus runs you over, you get run over by a bus, your job or your employer is going to replace you within a day or two, but you can't replace your families. You want to be successful. You want to, it's nice to be, have financially secure, and you do that early in your life with education and, and the job and what have you. But as you get older, I think success is, you've got a good family. You provided for your family. You're not ashamed of anything you've done. You got where you were not by, you earned it. You earned it. You didn't, I'm lack of words here, but you got where you are because of hard work, and you treated everybody fairly. You treated people like you wanted to be treated. You took care of your family. And at this point in my life, I've got regrets. We all do, but no big ones.
All right, all right. That is indeed an amazing attribute, an amazing measure you attributed to success. So thank you for sharing it with us. So lastly, Chris, for our listeners who want to read your book, Apollo Wept, follow your blog, or perhaps just connect with you. So where is the best place for them to go?
It's available almost online at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, pretty much anywhere online you can find it. My website here's my author webpage. You can go to that, and that will give you my page, coyoteauthor.wordpress.com. From there, like I say, I don't have any links right to them, but Barnes and Noble, Amazon. There's an overture out there, which is just a little short introduction, and then there's the full book called Apollo Wept. And say it's the distributor does a really good job of getting it worldwide. I know it's in various, not just the U.S., but it's pretty much in distribution worldwide. So either electronic copy, audio, or there's a paperback right there about yay thick, so kind of thick for the paperback, but it is available in audiobook and ebook, pretty much where you buy any books online.
All right, Chris. It's been a really great time, a really interesting time for me having this conversation with you, and I am very excited and honored to have you on the show today. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate it. It's been an honor. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me.